Hello there, this is an Algebra 1 video. It's Chapter 9, Section 4, and today we're going to be learning how to solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. Now before we can go to the solving process, we need to make sure that we know what makes a perfect square trinomial. And so in example 1, we're trying to see what value of c would make this a perfect square trinomial. Now when you complete the square, there is a method to how you do this, and the way that you do that is you want to hone in on the middle term. The middle term is a big deal. So what you do is you want to take the middle term, which in this case is 4, and then divide that by 2, which gives you a 2. And then you want to square this result, which will in turn give you a 4 again. That means that in order for this to be a perfect square trinomial, the value of c would have to be 4. Okay, and we're going to see how that works a lot more as we continue. But for now, remember that you take the middle term, divide it by 2, and then square your result. Okay, so take the middle term, divide by 2, square the result. So now what this means is that we can write this as x squared plus 4x plus 4. And if you were going to factor this, you would have x, and then to get 4, you would have 2 times 2 is 4, and then 2x plus 2x would give you the 4x. And so what happens is now you have two factors, both of which are x plus 2, and when you have x plus 2 twice, you can just simplify that as x plus 2 quantity squared, and this is the square of a binomial, which is what we're after. When you solve quadratic equations by completing the square, this is what you're after, because when this is equated to some other number, you can take the square root of both sides to solve. Now again, that's happening in the future. Right now, the only question they wanted us to answer was what was the value of c. It turns out that the value of c is actually 4, so the answer to the question is right here. I'm not sure why I erased that for you, but the value of c is 4. So now, for you want to try this do-it-yourself question. Remember, we want to take the middle term, divide it by 2, and then square your result. Now remember that when you take the middle term, you divide by 2, you will have a negative, but when you square that negative, it should become a positive. All right? So now we're actually going to get to the nitty-gritty of actually completing the square, solving by completing the square. So we're going to do the whole step, the whole process. So stay with me here. We're going to start off by taking and moving our c value. You saw in the previous example there was a c value here. Now you have an equal sign. So what you want to do is you basically want to keep your first term and your middle term. And then what I like to do is put a blank. It reminds me that when I say I'm completing the square, it means that I'm going to finish it off somehow. It's not finished yet, so I'm going to finish it off. So this blank kind of reminds me that I need to put something there that will complete the process. All right, so we have a 19 over here, and now we're going to have a minus 12 because I'm going to take this 12 to the other side. So I have the next step, which is going to be to take our middle term, negative 6, divide it by 2, which gives me negative 3, and then square my result. So when I square my result, I actually end up with a positive 9. And now I'm going to add a positive 9 to this side, but I can't just add positive 9 to one side and not add it to the other side, because now my equation will be unbalanced. So in order to keep it balanced, I'm going to go ahead and add 9 to the right-hand side as well, so now it's balanced. When I factor the left-hand side, I will end up with x, 3 and 3 will give me the positive 9, both negatives. And if I go negative 3x and negative 3x, I'll get negative 6x. So you'll see how, like in the previous example, I get the same factor twice. So I get x minus 3 quantity squared equals the 19 minus the 12 plus the 9, which is going to equal 16, I believe. All right, so now I can square root both sides to solve. And because the square and the square root will cancel, I have x minus 3 equals plus or minus 4. because the square root of 16 is 4. And then I add 3 to both sides. And so my final answers will be x equals positive 4 plus 3 is 7. And negative 4 plus 3 is negative 1. So my two solutions are 7 and negative 1. One thing that I wanted to bring your attention to is that you don't have to factor it every single time. You can do that at the beginning because you're still maybe not sure of yourself yet and you're wanting to make sure that you actually did it right. But the completing the square process will guarantee that you're going to get a perfect square. So once you have added the 9 to both sides, you can actually go straight to this step because the number that goes inside the parentheses, the minus 3 here, is always the same as the number before you squared it. So because this is negative 3, that's also negative 3. Now if you want to factor it, you can. But if you want a shortcut, because we know that the completing the square process will always work, once you do this, you can go straight to this step. And in my next example, I will do that. All right, but first you are going to do this example. And then I'm going to go to example 3 here. So example 3 is a scenario where we're still completing the square, but now what you have is there is a coefficient of x squared that is not 1. Our previous examples had 1x squared in front of them. So that's not a huge deal. It just means that what we want to do is we want to divide by negative 2 first before we do anything else. So we're going to take and divide everything by negative 2. When I do that, I'm going to get x squared. 8 divided by negative 2 is going to be negative 4x. Negative 18 divided by negative 2 is going to be positive 9 equal to 0. All right, and now, as before, we want to take our positive 9 and move it to the other side. So we're going to have x squared minus 4x. There's going to be a blank, and then we're going to put the negative 9 on that side because I'm subtracting 9 to the other side. Then we proceed with the middle term, dividing it by 2, which gives me a negative 2, and then I square that and I get a positive 4, like we did in example 1. So positive 4 goes there. I keep it balanced by adding a 4 on the other side as well. And now there's my completing the square part. And because I know I'm going to use my shortcut this time so you can see how it works, I know that I've completed the square, and it guarantees a perfect square trinomial. And the number before I squared it is always the number that goes inside the factor form. So I'm going to have x minus 2 quantity squared. And I'm having the x minus 2 quantity squared because this is a negative 2 here. And then I have negative 9 plus 4, which is going to give us negative 5. And then we want to square root both sides. But at this point, in Algebra 2, you will see how to solve this kind of a problem. But what's happening right now is that we have, if you try to square root both sides, you're going to end up taking the sort of a negative number, and we can't do that. That's not a real number. And so for this problem, we're not going to have any real solutions. It does have imaginary solutions, but like I said, we'll deal with those in Algebra 2. So for now, when that happens, you put no real solutions, which we saw in the past when we graph them. That would be a scenario where you graph it and it doesn't have any x-intercepts, okay? So if you have your perfect square trinomial and then, your perfect square binomial equal to a negative, then you're going to have no real solutions. All right, so here's do-it-yourself number 3, and remember that you just need to divide by 3 first, and then you can carry on like normal. So here we have our last example, example 4. It says the senior class at Bay High School buys jerseys to wear to the football games. The cost of the jerseys can be modeled by the equation C equals 0.1x squared. And that's what I'm going to take that little guy, 0.1x squared plus 2.4x plus 25, where C is the amount it costs to buy X jerseys. How many jerseys can they purchase for $430? Okay, so C is the amount that it costs to buy an X number of jerseys, and you only have $403 to work with here. So what we're going to do in this example is we're going to equate it to 430 because that's how much money we have to spend. Now we want to go forth, but again, you can see that there's a coefficient in front of the X squared that's not 1, and so we want to get rid of that right away. And so we're going to divide everything by 0.1. All right, so we get X squared. 2.4 divided by 0.1 is 24. And then 25 divided by 0.1 is 250. And then 430 divided by 0.1 is 4,300. Basically, it's the dividing by 0.1 is the same thing as multiplying everything by 10. All right? So, there you go. Now we're going to carry on doing our completing the square, but of course we want to move the 250 to the other side, so we're going to write x squared plus 24x, we'll put our blank, and then we're going to take 4,300, and we're going to subtract the 250. Alrighty. And we're going to get 4,050. And then our completing the square process tells us to take the middle term, which is 24, divided by 2, which is now 12, square that, which gives us 144. So I'm going to put in my blank 144. I'm also going to add 144 to the right-hand side to keep it balanced. And because I know I completed the square and I'm guaranteed a perfect square binomial, I'm going to write x, and because the number before I squared it is positive 12, I'm going to put x plus 12, quantity squared, equals 4,050 plus 144, which is 4,194. And now we're going to square root both sides. And the square root and the square will cancel. And the square root of my answer, the square root of 4,194 is plus or minus 64.76. Now obviously x represents the number of jerseys. We're going to subtract 12 from both sides. And we're going to get positive 64.76 minus 12, which is 52.8. And then we have negative 64.76 minus 12, and you're going to get negative 76.8. Now, because we're dealing with a real-life application and x is the number of jerseys, it doesn't make sense for us to have negative 76.8 jerseys. All right, so we're going to get rid of the negative option right away. And then we have x equals 52.8 jerseys. But you can't buy 52.8 jerseys. You either buy 52 or you buy 53. Now you don't have enough money to buy 53 because you only have enough to buy 52.8. 53 would be too big. So you're a little bit shy to buy 53, but you can buy 52 jerseys with $430, and you'll probably end up having a few cents left over. All right, so 52 jerseys. Now you will try this do-it-yourself example here. And when you finish this do-it-yourself question, you will have completed your notes for this lesson. And I will see you in class. And thanks for watching.